every 15 minutes. This indicates that the previous performer is done and the next performer will soon begin. At 7 o'clock, we will meet back in the LMC to watch some of our top performers from so far this season. Our first performer tonight competes in SOS. Please help me welcome our
Hello, class of 2027. My name is Arav Jain. I'm the sophomore class president, and I could not be more excited to stand here in front of you today for freshman orientation. Now, I know you must be all a little bit anxious about this upcoming school year, as I was once in your position all those months ago. And trust me, getting up in the morning, it's not fun. But now I can confidently say that you are all worried about the wrong thing. With my single year of experience, it's clear that none of you guys know what's going on in the real world. Want to skip school? NBC reported this July that our Illinois legislator made 7 new education laws. One of them excusing students to skip school to participate in civil duties. Yet, none of you guys knew this because you don't watch the news. That's why I, Arav Jain, am going to be listing out the causes, the effects, and the solutions to our news avoidance problem. Or you could just stay on TikTok. Now, I will say that it's hard to follow up on old news when there's just so much. I mean, these days everything sounds the same. MSNBC, CNBC, NBC, CNN, BBC, BBQ, HIV. The worst part is that most of these news sites all show the same depressing images of children on the streets of destroyed cities, and no one wants to watch that on a Saturday night. The 2 major causes of our news avoidance problem is that there's way too much information, and a lot of this information is just way too sad. The first issue is that there's an information overload. A study by the Reuters Institute for the Study of Journalism found out the abundance of choice in an online context may be leading others to regard the news far less regularly than they did in the past. In other words, because we're overwhelmed, we ignore it. It's like if The Bachelor had to pick between 50 women and just walked out the door. The second cause is that the news is just way too sad. Last year, media researcher Kirsten Eddy reported that 34% of younger audiences say the news has a negative effect on their mood because of coverage of politics and other civil issues. I mean, come on, who wants to watch another episode of Keeping Up with the Trump family? He left the White House and is still getting more coverage than our current president. Now, I can't go over 30 seconds without getting a headache from the news. I don't even understand what breaking news means anymore. Breaking viewers' trust, their hearts, or their mental capacity, because I cannot deal with this anymore. These breaking news reports typically lead to 2 effects: a lack of trust from viewers, and the preference of no news over bad news. The first effect is the lack of trust from viewers. Another study by the Reuters Institute suggests that young audiences have grown up in a digital world, causing them to become overcritical about their consumption of the news, leading them to having a skeptical approach to the news. The National Post backed this up, reporting in a recent survey that people under the age of 35 were most likely to not trust the news, with only a third of them saying that they trust the news most of the time. When you have large businesses reporting different things on the same subject, it's hard to know who to trust. For example, when it comes to covering current events, CNN and Fox News definitely have different POVs. One skewed left, the other skewed right. I would just rather watch a fight between Tucker Carlson and Anderson Cooper than Elon and Zuckerberg, because the tension between these 2 news stations, pure entertainment. Not to mention that a lot of these news stations are almost as fake as Marvel CGI these days, but that's a whole other issue. The second effect is the preference of no news over bad news. BBC researcher Nick Newman recently found that the overwhelming depressing nature of the news is causing many young viewers to turn away temporarily or permanently. On top of the stress we get from school, it's very hard to pile hundreds of warnings of death, and destruction from our news stations. And it's not just us young people who are affected, but adults with real responsibilities too. In fact, a 30-year-old woman from Iran had recently said that when she watches the news, she gets nervous. And when she gets nervous, she mistreats her own child? I can only imagine her watching the news with her baby in her arms, and then just dropping it at the sight of an on-screen explosion. And hopefully dropping babies isn't exactly relevant to everyone, but I know that finding news dedicated to you is pretty difficult. I mean, take me for example. The only news that I've been following up on recently is when my Amazon package is coming. But together we can help solve this issue by finding good, trustable sources and actually understanding how the news business works. The first solution is by finding good, trustable sources. Now, I know that many of you guys don't have the time to go on your TV and watch the news, or you don't have the time, or you have the time to scroll on TikTok for hours and hours. Just doesn't add up to me. Well, you guys are in luck. CNN Business recently found that news organizations are actually moving to these social media sites in effort to gain views from their younger audiences. Now, I know that many of you guys watch TikTok for those weird POVs or those anime edits, but for the rest of you, this is great news. And if you do want to take this traditional approach in watching the news, it's not as difficult as it may seem. In fact, Joel Swart, a professor from Netherlands, had stated that simply using your gut feeling and your intuition is enough to find good, trustable news sources based on their tone and their familiarity. The second solution is actually understanding how the news business works. Joel Swart had also reported that if these news stations don't stay socially relevant, they'll continue to lose their views from their audiences, causing them to produce bad news. You see, guys, these news stations aren't so different from us because it looks like they crave just as much validation as we do. And despite this, there is good news out there that you just have to realize. A study from Switzerland suggests that news stations are terrible at reaching their younger audiences. But these younger audiences are awesome at taking the initiative and finding news stations that they actually enjoy. If you like a post about a scientist saving our planet, like that on Instagram. If you are interested in sports updates, go ahead and like that. If you're into those weird POVs, I guess you can like that. And if you're into updates about Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift, you can like that, but none of us care. Now, to conclude, class of 2027, we have gone over a lot about what the news stations are doing wrong. From too much sad information and recurring false news, it's hard to know who to trust. But that doesn't mean you can't watch the news. By taking the initiative and finding good, trustable sources, and filtering out all those untrustworthy news sources, you can focus on the world's positives and even its negatives. And you can even skip school, probably. This is your last chance to change your mind about your consumption of the news before you become as uneducated as the average Floridian.